folks, welcome to the next episode of the Snowies Camping Show. I'm here with Lauren. How are you going today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well now. I had my coffee. This is empty. I've got an empty coffee cup sitting in front of me.
My coffee cup is empty too. Thanks for getting it for me.
From one meeting to another.
Yes.
And I just quickly squeezed in a coffee in between.
You did good there.
Just got there and back in time. A few minutes late, but it's all right. Caffeine's more important. If you haven't already done so, you can subscribe to our channel on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app, and join in on the conversation at the Snowies Camping Banter Facebook group, where we've got a whole community of campers and outdoor adventure lovers talking about what we talk about here and whatever else you want to talk about. Now we've got a guest on today who was also juggling meetings to get here, and we're all just a smidge late, but we're all here. We made it work. And it's a bit of an old-time favourite of ours. We've had this person on plenty of times before, but we're welcoming once again Ross from Cedar Summit. How you going, Ross?
Hey, Ross.
Guys, thank you for having me. I am caffeinated, but it ran out quite some time ago, so all good.
How do you feel about being called an old-time favourite?
I heard all, so I didn't hear old.
All-time. Oh, we'll go with all. Which one do you prefer?
What did you say, Ben? You mumbling. Did you say all time or old time?
Well, it depends which one Ross prefers. I'll leave
all
that one
time.
open. Okay,
all
we'll go
time.
with
Let's stick with that.
We'll
No,
all
I
time.
greatly appreciate it, and always enjoyed chatting with yourselves.
No, we talked about when your tent range launched. We've had Cedar Summit on a number of times on the podcast, but the reason we've got you here today is because there are some new mats that came out a little while back now. We've done some videos and everything on it, and they're updates to your existing mats. Some pretty cool updates, especially with the insulation materials, and that prompted us to say, let's get Ross on. And the beauty is that we didn't do much preparation. We said, let's just get Ross on and see where the conversation takes us. We're going to talk about your mats. Sure. See you at 11 o'clock. But so there's two lots of mats that you've updated. Your self-inflating mats and your Etherlite mats have been updated in your range from a previous series. But on the surface, they don't look that much different. But the main change, and we were just talking about this before, is what prompted the need for the change. And we're seeing this across a lot of brands, across all products, a requirement from a manufacturing point of view to meet certain legislative or manufacturing standards with chemicals and that sort of stuff used in the process. So before we jump into the actual mats, can you elaborate on what the needs are there for brands now with that manufacturing process?
I can talk a little to it. And I'll actually say for the sleeping mats, really, performance is such an important piece for us. Performance of the product, ensuring you'll have a good night's sleep is the primary driver for some change there. But we do have other updates across our range. We've obviously got a broad portfolio of products, and there is legislation change, and there are sort of retailer requirements around the world, as well as a brand wanting to simply be better, and a lot of it's around using lower environmental impact materials and construction techniques. Legislation in Europe, I'm not crazy hot on, but things like being PFAS free, so that is sort of PFOA's non-stick treatments to cookware, or it could be your DWR treatments in something that you'd have like put on a sleeping bag or on a lot of apparel. There's requirements to be PFAS free, which is great. It's a positive step. Less baddies in the environment, and so we've got a few changes across our range, and then obviously performance benefits alongside it as well.
As a brand that obviously you're an Australian brand, but you do have markets globally, is that a tricky factor to have to balance all of those legislative requirements and manufacturing requirements in all the regions?
100%, yeah. I'm glad I don't have to do it for a job. I think, keeping up to speed with what the legislation might be in one country versus another. Languages on packaging, some of it might be that you have to say this on your packaging, or you have to say this. Trying to find enough space to be able to cover all of that can be a challenge too. The guys do a good job of keeping on top of it all.
So it was if we talk about the mats that were updated, it was the Etherlite came in the XT series, and that's been updated to an XR series, right? We'll talk to the XT series first, and probably what we felt was that the elephant in the room, I suppose, that people always mention it being noisy, which is a really interesting conversation we had earlier, because you, Lauren, have got a few different mat brands that you've used, and your opinion of it was sort of a little bit different, I suppose. But lots of people are saying they're really, really noisy, which is the same in your experience as other brands you've got.
Yeah, well, I've got a couple of different brands that are all inflatable, like no self-inflating foam ones, because I go for luxury, guys. I'm in for the thickness, for the pack size. I'm not in for the nice thin cardboard foam ones. Anyway, moving on. And I've personally found another brand, Matt, that I have much noisier than the Etherlite. However, the Etherlite obviously does carry a bit of a reputation about that. So what's your sort of feedback on that from the XT range and also moving into the XR range?
Yeah, it's a big topic to unpack. So I suppose we've got two styles of sleeping mats really that are out there. Go into a little bit more detail, but with self-inflating mats being foam filled, and you have our air mats. So air mats in general, whatever brand it might be, is a bladder of lightweight nylon or polyester. That fabric, when it's brushed up against a sleeping bag, is going to make a noise, and that's just inherent in any air mat that is out there. It's a challenge for brands because if it's noisy, it can impact the quality of your sleep. So there's a few things at play, and for us, comfort always has to come first, and I'll come to that a little bit later and make sure we address the noise piece. So fabric movement is what creates noise. We've had our air mat range since 2013. Our air sprung cell range, as we sort of outlined what we called it at the start. Those air sprung cells, that they do move around a little bit, and I think as then air mats in the market became more prevalent, people realised that there was noise. So with our Etherlites, we introduced our Etherlite in 2019, so it'll be 6 years after we introduced air mats. The construction of it is such that you have a shallower cell, so the air sprung cell is shallower. You actually have less fabric movement when you compress or you put pressure on the mat. So that in itself immediately reduced the noise that you have and you experience. Now, if you're in a sleeping bag and you move when you sleep, we all sleep in different ways. I'm sorry, that's going to cause noise regardless. But the actual mat itself and the construction of the Etherlite is already quite a lot quieter than other mats and some of our older mats where you've got more inherent fabric movement in the product itself.
Okay, so it's inevitable that there's noise, but from your experience, we challenge people to look across all mat brands, and when you hear that noise, and don't just take opinions on one of them, because it's all you rub two shiny fabrics together and you get a
zhuzh type noise whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
and I mean, like I always chuck I've got a thermoreactor liner, right? And even if I don't necessarily think I'm going to use it, I always chuck it in because I a bit of it. One night I might be zipped up to my chin. The other night I might zip fully open and have a quilt because I'm a bit all over the place when I sleep. So putting your bag in, just chuck my bag in my liner, right? And it's just makes it nice and soft if I'm going for the quilt version and reduces the noise heaps because there's no zhuzh with the two different materials. But also I know I mentioned before earlier, Ross, but that Coolmax sheet for your air sprung cells that is missing from your range currently. Lots of feedback on getting that back. So I just want on record that's a highly in demand product.
You can claim it now if we have some sort of sheet in the future.
Naming rights, the Lauren Coolmax sheet.
I don't want naming rights.
Colour rights based upon our previous
conversation. Colour rights, yes. Give me colour rights.
That might be damning for you when lots of people turn up and say, these colours are horrible. And you go, what are you talking about? Because
it's like, I don't care. They're not to me.
Fair enough. As long as you've got the right colour, right?
Yep.
Okay. It's all about you.
Okay, well, my house, sorry, we're getting a bit off track here, but full disclosure, my house is full of Cedar summer gear. So colour is very important to me. Go.
I was going to talk, take a step back. In your range over the years, you've always looked at what customers have said and asked and improved in every iteration of products you've either created or redone. And as I mentioned before, on the outside, this Etherlite upgrade doesn't look that much different. But a few questions, I just had to flick through all the Q&As we have on our website, feedback from our customers, and a few questions that come up, one of them being lifetime expectancy, which is a really hard one to answer, right? Like how would you approach an answer to what would be the lifetime expectancy of a mat?
Yeah, that is a great question. And like any outdoor product, it depends how it's treated and how it's cared for. And I remember someone saying, if I'm spending so much on something, do I really have to look after it? And somebody explained to me once, it's like, well, if somebody owns a Ferrari, they don't treat it like trash.
Yeah.
Likening our mats to a Ferrari, or maybe I am. But so it does depend a lot on how you care for your products. I might take the opportunity and talk about sort of one of the updates that you can't visibly see in our products, and that lifetime expectancy links to it, and that is sort of durability or reliability. And I again link it to actually the quality of your sleep, because if you can't rely or you're concerned about a product failing on you, I know that would be enough to keep me up at night, which is not ideal when that is the primary purpose of the product. So what we've done with our mats is talk about the installation in a minute, but we've actually changed two things. We've updated the TPU thickness on the inside of the mat. I'll take 2 seconds to quickly go into some design details. So the mat that you see, the grey fabric on the Etherlite XR, this is your nylon, this is your outer layer. This is sort of like the skeleton almost of the mat. But to make that airtight, you have a TPU layer that is laminated to the inside of that fabric. Talk about extrusion lamination and the positives of what we do there, but we won't quite go into that. But that TPU fabric, or that TPU laminate, is what makes it airtight. In the Etherlite XR, so an update for us this year, we've slightly thickened the top layer of that TPU on our mats. Now, when I say slightly thickened, we've gone from a 0.07 mil thickness to a 0.1 mil thickness, so 0.03 of a millimeter difference. But it does make a big difference. So that's one change. And the other change for any of your keen customers that might have seen is where we've had a circular weld that's helped construct the mat, that has moved to an oval shape. So the two changes that we've made there have made a really big difference on the durability and reliability of, and ultimately that longevity and how long a mat will last for you.
Okay. You may not know the answer to this, but circle v oval, how does that make a difference?
So the way that you move on a mat, and the way that, so the Etherlite mat is 10 centimeters thick, and you have these TPU loops that create that height when you inflate the mat. Those TPU loops, as you move, will sort of shift slightly, and that creates a strain or a pressure point on the loop. And we've found that turning that into an oval gives you more surface area and, helps reduce the strain to one particular point when you move on the mat at night.
Okay.
It's interesting we talk about that extrusion. We did an episode just recently on what makes a fabric waterproof. That TPU layer, in your case, is airtight, is also the same sort of process used for waterproof fabric. So if anyone's interested, tune into that one. But anyway, sorry, I cut you off there, Ross.
No, it's good. It's absolutely the same principle. Our air mats, yes, they're airtight, they are waterproof, and you can float on them. Testing is then the next thing, because you can say, okay, well, this is great. You've wanted to improve durability. You've thickened it a bit here. You changed this weld. What does that look like? So this year we sort of changed a little on how we can test mats. This is on top of the fact that every mat that you purchase has been overinflated and left overnight already. Overinflated being it's inflated to something that you couldn't actually physically do yourself. So that's already part and parcel of the process. We're doing some more real world sort of simulations as well. So a rollator test, which is what actually happens in some mattresses that you use at home. So simulating a bit more of that real world use, thrashing around up and down the mat in the way that you might, lean on it with your knees and your elbows when you're in your tent. And also then inflating a mat until it bursts. And we have, I think it's around a 200% increase in weld strength. I should have all these on top of me, but it's essentially a 200% increase in reliability of the mats versus previous iterations, which we're absolutely stoked with. And that's also not saying that we had, huge concerns with the previous one, but it was something that we wanted to address because we see an air mat where you have no built-in redundancy. If you get a puncture in the night or a leak, you're going to bottom out and you're going to wake up and you're going to be very cold. So we wanted to address reliability, and we've made a big difference there. The other thing is then getting products out into the wild and getting them tested. So even before we actually thickened the TPU, just putting those oval welds on it, we've had a family actually traveling, cycling up the coast of South America, and they've done 300 nights, I think, on the trot using these new mats, which is a pretty glowing endorsement. And in terms of, how long it would last you, 300 nights on a trot is that's thrashing.
That was going to be another question I was going to ask, because often, if you're buying something like your Durston mid tents or things which are like a very ultralight tent, often they'll come with a thing that said will last one Appalachian Trail. Do you know what I mean? Or they will last one of these particular trips because they're ultralight. And so it's like you pay for this really excellent quality product. It's obviously over-engineered, or not over-engineered, but you know what I mean? Like spec'd up so it meets your weight requirements and your pack size requirements. However, you sacrifice the longer term durability with that, which is how it is with all ultralight products, right?
Yep.
And I would say that your Etherlite mats do, especially the non-insulated versions, they do fit into that ultralight category for what the size of the product and the thickness for what you get. So that, obviously 300 nights or more on in the trot does speak to that durability.
So the weight and sizes, if you haven't seen it, check out our product videos because they are really, really compact. What you get for the weight is really good. My next question was going to be people mentioning slow deflation and I mean, you guys are always awesome with warranties anyway. If there's a manufacturing fault, you've always just backed that up. But people saying there's a slow leak through the weld or the valve, but does that process of what you're talking about now increases the strength of it as well and minimises those slow leaks issues?
100%. And that was the one. So again, to talk to industry standards and return rates, this is a bladder of air. So you can expect to see some, but something below the 1% mark is what a big brand would strive for. And we were certainly there. We might see dog barking. Little things not to protect us from them. But we still wanted to strive to be a little bit better. And some of those sort of slow leaks is what's come over a lot of extended use and that shear point where that TPU weld is. So both of those changes have made a noticeable difference. And pleasingly, what we've done is, invest in ways to test and ensure that we can validate that improvement. So really, really excited about, people having more peace of mind when they're sleeping.
That's great.
So talk to me about the insulation, because obviously your new XR series, lighter, warmer, more packable. But obviously if something is warmer, then you would think that it would be heavier and bigger, but that's not the case. So what have you done there?
Absolutely. So this is where sort of you can almost start with the insulation as being a driver for us with the mat too. So R values, R standing for resistance. R values is the measurement of heat resistance protection, I suppose, that you get in a sleeping mat. Important to be able to measure, and it's a nice industry standard now so that customers compare mats against others. Always important to, a warm mat is great. If you don't have a warm mat, it will impact the performance of your sleeping bag too. So that was something that we wanted to, wouldn't say address. We had about a decent R value, but if we can improve it, then that would be great. Technology updates, new materials. We've been able to update the insulation that we've used in the mat. So previously where we had a layer of most Primaloft, so thermalite insulation, so synthetic insulation alongside a reflective film, you can get better results now, and other brands have similar better results using more effective reflective materials. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So so that reflective material is what we've updated and moved to. So TRM film, a little more impressive than Mylar. So it actually performs slightly stronger than some others out there. But that's allowed us to use less weight in our insulation, yet get a greater R value in the mat.
So to explain this in layman's terms to customers, you've moved from when you talk Primaloft, for those who don't know, that's so it's like if you talk about insulation in a ceiling of a house, you've got a thickness of material. So it's a bit like lightweight bats for your mat is what you used to have, and then you had to compress that down to roll the mat up. And there was also like a thin layer of let's just call it silver material, like alfoil type sort of stuff.
Yeah.
and that work together. But you've removed that bulkier synthetic insulation layer, and you're just using multiple thin alfoil layers. I'm trying to put it in really simple terms, which means it's far more compact.
Exactly that. Yeah. Remove the fluffy stuff and improve the reflective stuff.
So there's no fluffy stuff in it at all?
No fluffy stuff in it at all anymore.
So and there's two in the series. I'm telling the story here now.
Yeah.
The basic one's got less layers of this alfoil material. The warmer one's got more of these layers.
Correct. Yeah, exactly that.
Cool.
And there's a variety of other benefits as well. It allows us to get a tighter fit around the TPU loops. So you get, but I think the important thing for us is we've gone, great, okay, we can save weight by moving to this insulation. Instead of banking all of that weight saving and just saying, great, we've made our mat lighter. That's where for us, we wanted to then go, well, what else can we address? And we've already talked to it, but we've put more weight back into the mat to improve upon that reliability.
Talk to me about previous Etherlite mats. Obviously, you had your uninsulated version, your insulated version, and then you had your extreme version. And all of those versions came in a unisex and a women's specific model.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have the two unisex and women's specific models in the new XR range.
Yep.
What's the motivation there?
Well, firstly, I'll say we don't need a non-insulated anymore. The benefit of having a non-insulated previously was because of the pack size, because it had none of the fluffy or reflective stuff in it. But because the reflective stuff packs down so small now, there's really no performance benefit, there's no pack size benefit in having a non-insulated. So that's why there's no longer a non-insulated. And again, like we say, no insulation under your sleeping bag. Your sleeping bag's not going to do its job.
Yeah.
When it comes to then gender-specific sleeping mats, we're in a position where we want to offer a gendered-specific product where there is a meaningful performance benefit. And so, for example, in sleeping bags, not across all models, but in sleeping bags where the fit is really important and the size, we will still offer female-specific models. But for sleeping mat, there's not enough of a performance benefit. What we ensure we have is a really decent size and sort of shape options. So short, regular, long, and then two rectangular sizes so that you can really get a mat that tailors your preferences and your sleep style.
Does that mean, like if you've got a tapered mat, does that mean the width of the mat is sitting in between where the unisex and the women's mat were, or are they all just pretty much unisex sizes?
They're pretty much unisex sizes. Take this opportunity to talk about the width of mats, which is something that we've been really passionate about. And we haven't used, we haven't used the C word at all in this podcast, but comfort. Comfort always leads the story. So we've talked about durability, we've talked about insulation. Both of them are alongside comfort. And for us, the most important thing with any of this is you've got to have a comfortable night's sleep. It can ruin your trip, ruin your next day if you've got a long hike back or whatever it might be. So comfort has to come first. When we introduced our air mats, we actually add about 4 centimeters versus the industry standard of an air mat to the width. So we actually already have a slightly wider mat as a standard regular size versus the sort of mummy shaped standard. And don't want to get too far into the self-inflating mats, but then in our self-inflating range with the contour shape, we've really tweaked it again to offer 12% more surface area on our regular mat versus a standard mummy shape. So it's not so much on where we were and where we are now, but more where we are just in general, Lauren, that we offer a slightly wider mat in general.
Okay.
So
hope that helps.
Yeah, it does.
Take a step back to the R value, resistance value too, because we've talked about it being warm, but same as the opposite of that, right? People think I don't want an insulated mat because I'm hiking in warm weather, but it also insulates from the ground up, right? So if you've got that set up on warm ground, you're reducing the amount of heat coming back up, so you can potentially sleep cooler as well. So just want to, am I right totally in my thinking there?
You're totally right. Yeah. And it's quite an interesting one when we talk about, you talked earlier about the fact that we sell, around the world. It's a tricky one to get across when you're in Europe talking to your retailers over there and saying sometimes the ground is really hot and we need to insulate from it because it's not normal. But yeah, it does work in exactly that way. And, in instance of keeping you cool and climate control, the term that we're sort of referring to a little bit in our sleep systems, you ventilate from the top. So a lightweight quilt, or even having that versatility of poking a leg or an arm out of your sleeping bag. That's how you're going to cool down.
Awesome. Let's move on to the Pursuit mats, which is your self-inflating range, which have been really popular for us as well. Nice, simple offering. 2 mats in the range. I haven't got the specs in front of me. One's 5, one's 7 centimeters. The big updates here, from what I can see, one of them being solution dyed process in the materials that you use, which we're seeing more and more nowadays, which is a really interesting process. I'll let you elaborate on the benefits of solution dyed fabrics though.
Yeah, so solution dyed. So these are new mats for us, which is exciting. Taking again, like you alluded to, Ben, learnings and our research in the market, what customers are really looking for. The solution dyed material is it's a colouring process to a material. What would typically happen is you'd have an extruded fibre and it would be run through a dye bath to be given colour. You get a lot of water wastage and sort of chemical runoff in that process. Solution dyeing, it dyes the polymer first before it's extruded into a fibre and turned into a fabric. So again, lower environmental impact, less water usage and chemical runoff. So it's a positive, and like you say, it's being fairly widely used now in a lot of apparel, certainly. Not so much in equipment. So we're pretty excited to be one of the sort of leading sleeping mat brands globally to bring it in.
And I believe it has benefits, and I'm thinking on the fly here, but it's not processed as much. And because that colour's right through the garment, it's got better UV resistance. And because it's not processed as much, it's also stronger. It's not subject to so much heat and stuff along the way. So you end up with a stronger, I think, from what I've seen, you're able to go for lighter or thinner denier fabrics, but get the same sort of strength and performance. Once again, is my thinking right on those lines?
Yeah, you can do, and I won't sort of, I'm not 100% set on all of it, but the color fastness is definitely a big part. So yeah, you have the color through and through. It's not just dyed and treated to the outside of it. They said it means you don't get, or you can't get sometimes as bright colors in the solution dyed material. I'm not sold on that myself because we've got a beautiful poppy orange colored Pursuit mat, which is solution dyed. Nice snowy orange. Color fastness is one, and
And
go.
The Delta core is used in those mats. That's something you guys have used in your mats since you've made them, I think. And the premise of that is that it's kind of a triangular shape that kind of folds on itself to make it really easy to fold up. Now I can attest that it is easy to squash a sleeping Cedar Summit mat up. It does fold up really easily. Is that the design process behind that Delta core to make that easy to roll up?
We're making lightweight equipment for people to be able to travel easier and enjoy their experiences outside. In a self-inflating mat, unlike air, you have foam inside it, and that adds quite a lot of bulk. So when you specialize in making lightweight gear, you want to try and find a way to shed weight. Pouring parts of that foam out, it is the easiest way to do so. You've got to do it in particular ways, and it's really interesting in how you can think about it. You can core it vertically, you can core it horizontally, you can core in parts. So for us, for example, some of the mats where we core vertically will leave foam where you need it, like under your hips or your shoulders, for more comfort. Again, that comfort word. For a mat like the Pursuit, we're really chasing some weight savings. And so the horizontal coring and the delta coring that you're referring to is quite unique. It allows us, instead of just punching sort of circular sort of holes through the foam, we're really carefully doing sort of triangular cuts up one way, up the other way, and it allows us to take out 40% of the weight of the foam.
Yeah, wow.
So if you have the slab of foam down, it's 40% of the foam that we're able to core out of it, and saves the weight. Another benefit of doing it that way as well is we still get a total adhesion of the outer fabric on the internal foam because the coring is horizontal, which is a really positive part from sort of longevity. You don't have any sort of like peeling of the face fabric away from the internal foam.
So the vertical you talk about, that's when they're like, if you look at the top of the mat, you can see lots of little holes throughout, whereas these mats have gone crossways. So I didn't think about the benefit of the adhesion across that whole sheet of foam. It must be beneficial. Yeah.
So can I ask a question? Like your Pursuit mats, obviously you've got your 5 centimetre thick, you've got your 7 centimetre thick one. Now, historically, you guys have had your air sprung cell range and you've had your self-inflating range, and there's almost like pretty much been a partner for each, right? So you've had your ultralight, self-inflating and air sprung, and then your Comfort Plus and all of that sort of stuff. Are you looking to condense your range to realistically just be these Pursuit and Etherlite mats overall? Like, how is the Pursuit, where is the Pursuit, I guess, sitting in your current range or the self-inflating mat range that people have known Cedar Summit for?
Yeah, good question. No is the short answer to your first question in terms of, is the range really just built around these two? It's ever evolving. We're already thinking about 2027 and beyond, which is pretty exciting, and we can talk to some 2026 things later. For me, the difference between who's using an air mat and a self-inflating mat is an important one, just to quickly answer to then answer this question. If you are chasing weight savings and that's self-supported adventurer, an air mat is always going to be your first port of call because it is the lightest weight. Self-inflating mats for carrying it yourselves, typically they're definitely bulkier, but they can also be a cost-effective option too. So if we think about first-time users just getting into the outdoors, things like our Camp Mat or our Camp Plus are really, really strong options. What we wanted to do with the Pursuit is say, well, listen, you might be an avid outdoors person, but you've realized that air mats, you don't like that nylon and nylon feeling, or you want some built-in redundancy that a self-inflating mat offers, but you can't afford that like extra bulk in your pack. So that's where the Pursuit came in. So it's the lightest weight 5 centimeter self-inflating mat in the market, which is really, really cool. And that comes from the Delta coring. It comes from the nylon, sort of the face fabrics that we're using and the weight savings there. We know that there's going to be more air mats sold to this type of customer. But to me, the Pursuit kind of just challenges it a little bit. So, you know what, actually, maybe I will have a little look at this. It makes me think twice about using a self-inflating mat for my next, multi-day hike, which is pretty cool.
It's also, the Pursuit comes in a rectangular shape. So we're talking, I'm just reading the specs here on our website, 198 long and 76 wide, which is quite a roomy mat. For just over or just under 1.5 kilos. So a similar 10 centimeter mats. You guys have got a 10 centimeter mat too. Maybe offer a little bit more comfort, but they come at a significantly higher weight and bulk when they're packed. So you're talking if we go to the car camping scenario, someone who might be camping in a sedan, and we know from the Facebook group that there's plenty of people who are camping out of small vehicles now. Weight is really important because you're trying to fit everything in the boot of a sedan. And so pack size is even more important. So you're talking a full size 7.5 centimeter mat that packs up in, I have a look at the pack dimensions here, it's only 40 long and about 17 centimeters in diameter. So it's a nice compact size. So you're not just talking lightweight hiking adventures here, you're talking lightweight car camping or compact car camping setups as well. So I think it's really cool that it's made in all those different sizes, rectangular and tapered size to suit all those lightweight adventures.
We all have such preferences when we sleep, right? And I think that's where the size offering is important. I've shifted to a rectangular mat myself, and I don't think I'll look back. Might be the fact that I spread out a little bit when I sleep, but I think everybody's really tailoring a solution to their needs, and we want to be able to have the offering.
It's a good segue because I wanted to touch on the sleep systems thing again, which is something you guys I don't know, could I say you guys pioneered it, I suppose, or you turned it into being a thing that, a camping sleep setup isn't just about one component. It's about how those components work together. You seem to be continuing to go down that path of innovating on the sleep system, that you get a sleeping bag and a sleeping mat to suit it, and then you've got pillows and liners and everything, and they can all be used together or different combinations to suit different climates. Have you come across a magic combination for
I don't think there is a magic combination because again we are so like we have our own preferences and we are so personal. So previously living in Perth, I know exactly what my setup is for a bike ride out of the office up into the hills, pub dinner and a camp out there. I know exactly what it is, but that would be very different to other parts of the country.
Did you say pub dinner?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Righto. Where you
Two of us from Perth is good.
Need to get on
See the
to
summit
that.
office, straight out to the hills, camp overnight.
Go to the pub for dinner.
Just in the backyard of the pub or something? Is that where you're camping?
Jeez, I need to rethink my adventures.
Good way just to get some bit of product testing in close to home. But yeah, it's the beauty of it is that you can tailor it for your personal needs. I should have said it earlier, but I think with all of this as well, and when we do talk about comfort, we'd encourage people to try it as much as you can. Then you shoot great content, which is awesome. If you're near the store, getting in and actually trying it out is also really, really valuable, especially if you're just doing research online. We're going to keep delivering more content to help. But yeah, you don't experience comfort by just looking at it.
Yeah, okay. And have you got best advice for if someone comes in and you probably get this question a bit, what they want to buy once and buy right kind of thing, and there's not always
you can't, it's impossible to answer.
Do that. But
totally.
What would be the best for someone who wants a little bit of camping, a little bit of hiking? What would be their best all-round Cedar Summit sleep setup for, I guess Adelaide type weather? So you've got warm summers and cool winters. We're not going extremes.
Adelaide type weather. Okay. Look, I can't look past the Etherlight as it is now. I think it's such a mega mat. No pun intended there. I think it's awesome. It will last you a long time. That reliability. For me, it's a rectangular shape.
Yep.
So I'd have a rectangular Etherlight XR. I'd steal a sample of our new 2026 pillows.
Hint. All right.
And I'd use an Ascent sleeping bag. The Ascent sleeping bag will pack down tiny if you want to do multi-day treks and you want to save space. But then if you want to open it right the way up and use it as a quilt in warmer weather, it's an incredibly versatile piece of kit. And then I'd have a reactor liner.
That's probably what I would have said, that people want an all-rounder. Then and that's exactly what you made the Ascent bag for, right? You've got all the comfort features, but you've trimmed it down to be not the lightest, but light enough for hiking as well. So that's good. We're on the right track with what we're finding customers there.
I've got that Altitude, obviously, which is the previous season now known as the Ascent Women's. It's the all-rounder of the kit for sure.
And what about future development? You've given us a hint. We can look at for pillows. So we won't sell any pillows between now and 2026 because people will be waiting for your new pillows.
Surely it's not going to beat the Down Aero pillows.
You can look at our range and see where we have new iterations, and astute customers will be able to work out where we also have to update. And some of that, to your point, very early on, Ben, is around some of that sort of legislation or a need to update materials and fabrics that we're using. That's in a few accessories and things like that. Within sleep systems, we've got exciting developments. Pillows is a category that we really haven't touched for a very long time. And I can confidently say that we've got a very, very strong range coming next year, which is exciting. Developments so it's nothing crazy sort of out there, but some noticeable improvements. Tweaks to some of our other self-inflating mats too. So where we've got the Pursuit range, there's some updates there that we didn't talk massively on, but the contour shape's been really well received. And then if you've used that new stuff stack that we've got, Ben, it's very well received too. So
we didn't mention that, but the contour shape, I think we did touch on it a little bit. But the stuff sacks, if you haven't seen it, check out the stuff sacks on the Pursuit mats because they're much easier to use.
Where we've made some nice improvements, rolling those out into some other categories is super important. Lauren, I know you're very passionate about colour. When you have a range that comes out in different years, sometimes the colour palette can be a little disjointed, but you'll see from next year there's consistency throughout our sleep system. And when you're then building sleep systems, you'll see synergy there, whereby a mat and a bag that'd be designed for a similar consumer type will look pretty sharp when they're in your tent out in your adventure.
Does that, talking about colours, is that something that you sort of take a look at from the whole range of Cedar Summit? Because the reason why I asked that is obviously some of your cookware range that dropped, it was last year, wasn't it? Like your detours and stuff. All the colours in that are beautiful, right? They're very, very beautiful. Like the previous X range wasn't as big a fan, but the detour range specifically, lovely colours. Then you've dropped your Pursuit mats and they're bright and colourful, but they're still along the same sort of vein of colour tone, right?
Yeah.
Is that something you look at as collectively as Cedar Summer as a whole?
Yes, absolutely. So we have, I think it's 5 sort of halo colours for the brand, and they've been picked obviously to ensure that they're nice colours, but with an Australian sort of theme to them as well, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Harking on our heritage. And then underneath those halo colours, I think we have a Pantone split of probably maybe 100 or so colours that we'll consistently use, but using them in the right way. So we'll talk about, purposeful brights. So if there's a safety element to a product, e.g. maybe an Alpine sleeping bag, as an example, bright yellow. Whereas if it's more, you can afford to be more muted in other areas. But yes, you'll see consistency and across the full range, regardless of category.
Does that make you happy?
Yeah, it does, because I'm somebody that's like, if the color is good, I'll buy it. Do you know what I mean? Like, and as terrible as that might sound to the product design team of a manufacturing brand, if the Detour range was a different color, I wouldn't have bought it, even if everything else about it was the same.
Color is important. And if we're ever in doubt, we just call Lauren and we do whatever Lauren suggests.
Super important.
It's a good move, Ross.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys have been a bit unfair to me in this podcast.
I'm just waiting for you to bite back. But
I'm just saying it is important. I think there are a lot of, like, I really love getting totally off topic here, but I really love Outra shoes, right? I love Outra. A lot of my shoes are Outra. They're so comfy. I rate them, but their colors are ugly. They're so ugly. I don't know who's on their design team making their shoes, but then you have Salomon, right? Some of their latest range, the colors are beautiful, but I would never wear a Salomon shoe because they don't really work for me. But I have been tempted to buy them even though they don't work for me because they look so good. So I think you can't ever underestimate the aesthetics of a product. It's like airline cutlery. If it's too light, your food tastes gross. If you're eating it with heavier cutlery, it tastes nice. Like, you can't underestimate the way that our senses interact with a product and how that affects the overall performance in a person's mind and viability of it. I'm just saying.
Make a note for a whole nother podcast topic there on sensory.
But it's science. It is science. It's just science.
Awesome. Well, that was awesome. Thanks, Ross. Anything else you want to add? Any secrets or exciting news or anything like that?
No secrets or exciting news.
Look at that face. There is secrets and exciting news, but we're just not hearing about it.
Of course. I think, thank you guys for having me. I think when it comes to sleeping mats, it's the foundation of your night's sleep. So invest in it, make a big difference to your adventure. For us, that comfort comes first, and we've got some really nice updates in terms of, pack size and also that durability piece is not to be underestimated.
Cool.
Awesome. Always a pleasure chatting to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Ross.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys.
All right, another episode down.
Yeah.
Nothing more to say other than we'll see you next time.
Catch you later, folks.
See you guys.